Let's start with the news LSU got yesterday, commitment from 4-star defensive end Naquan Brown out of Virginia. Give us the thumbnail scouting report on him, if you would, Mike.
I like to do comparisons.
Okay.
And man, I get more people send me text of, give me a comparison. So that must work for me for whatever reason. When I saw for the first time Naquan Brown out on the field, he reminded me of a guy that is just starting his NFL career today, and that's Fred Warner, the outside linebacker with the San Francisco 49ers. And you'd probably hear a lot more about Warner because, he started the first 2 years. He's had over 118 tackles in both seasons. Mm-hmm. But he plays the guys up front get all the ink. It's almost like the quarterback. It doesn't matter what other position you play. Bosa and Buckner and Armstead, they're getting all the ink with it. But Fred's a really good player. I remember him when he was in high school in California. And late in the process, there were a lot of the Pac-12 schools after him. I'm going to say, and I don't have it in my mind, but I know that when he came out, if you'd have to go back to Rivals or 247, he was a 6'3", 205, 210-pound guy, okay? He's in that framework of 205, 210. And when you look at Brown, there's similar builds. This real long, lean athlete. And Warner at that time was known as a pass rusher, as a guy get up on the line of scrimmage, get after the quarterback. And then when he got to BYU, what they found out is, man, can he play in reverse real well too? But they both have similar qualities in the ability to what I call snap. Off the snap, they're real quick up the field. It's snap up the field to get after the quarterback and to run from point A to point B and get to the ball carrier. That's the similarity. Physically, they look a lot alike.
Mike's 6'3", 205 coming out of high school.
Okay, so you see,
yeah, right on it.
That similarity is there in their game. Their ability to Fred was his ability to he'd throw those long arms up in the air, and when you'd watch film of him in high school, it was like the quarterback was, whoa, man, it wouldn't make a lot of times make the sack, but boy, that quarterback was pulling down that ball real quickly. When with Naquan is different. Man, you see when he gets off that snap, that ability to close in, if it's in on the quarterback, if it's in on the running back, he does that really quick. When I look at Warner, and he looks very similar to Naquan Brown and what he can do and what he can't do. Now, we haven't seen a lot of Brown in reverse, but if you go back to Warner when he was in high school, they didn't know that either until he got to BYU. He played a little safety in high school, but he was a box safety. He played right up on the line of scrimmage, basically like another linebacker at times. So that would be my comparison. Both long, lean athletes, quick of that snap up the field to make a play. And you look at Warner today, he's 235, 240, so you're not going to get that 200-pound guy today or 205 to 300 pounds, okay? But you can get him in that 235, 240, and it's his range and just his ability to run the field and make plays that's impressive. And, man, that's a big pickup for LSU from that area of the country. Again, it's something I just shook my head the first time Coach O told me that's where he was going to recruit. And I told you the story. He made the comment that, when we were going to live this long, we'd have took better care of our lives. In essence, a comparison that I didn't think I would live long enough. That's where LSU is pulling from now. From that area, from the Midwest, from out on the East Coast. That has not happened, Matt. It's so that now you got to hold on to him And that's going to be the challenge here with national recruits that you go after. Because a lot of times when it gets late in the process, I think a lot of times those hometown teams get to them that, hey, listen, you got to stay. You got to stay. And they feel a little bit of pressure to do so. And we saw it last year, even in the December signing period, when you had a young man from the Maryland
I'm
area.
trying the receiver, the big kid, the 5-star who
Rakeem.
Rakeem Jarrett. That's it.
Yeah, and he decides to stay home, and then the other young man from California, he wanted to split, but he ends up at Georgia instead of at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
The other receiver. So you're going to have issues like that, and that's going to happen. We've already seen it in this recruiting period where the young man from Florida, from South Florida, decides, I'm going to decommit and I'm going to commit to Florida instead.
Mm-hmm.
It's the safety position, which has really opened up some avenues where the young man who has verbally committed to Alabama, LSU may be back on that trail on that part. So getting back to Brown, it's an excellent pickup for what they want to do defensively in that 4-3 alignment, because I think Brown can be a really good pass rusher. But, man, his athleticism, his ability to run side to side, his track down speed, and that snap is going to be evident. I think he's a guy that can play pretty quickly if he can do one thing. And we'll find out when he gets to LSU how well he handles playing in reverse. Because if he's going to play linebacker, then he's going to have to prove he can play in reverse in that Bo Pelini defense. It's not going to be an all sick'em type team. You got to cover somewhere along the line. But BYU didn't know how good of a player Fred Warner was in reverse when they picked him up, because he was basically in a forward position most of the time in high school. It wasn't a lot of put in reverse. And that, again, it's a huge pickup because of where you got him, his athletic skills. Everything I've heard about him is he's a very quick pickup guy. If you teach him something, he gets it very, very quickly. How much weight you'll be able to put on with him in muscle, again, you look at his frame, you could see that 25, 30 pounds, that's not going to be an issue putting that on him, and it's not going to disrupt any of his athleticism that he has. But in seeing him for the first time and watching him on film, I stopped it right off the bat. I didn't need to see anymore. I don't need to waste my eyesight anymore. I knew who he was. He was Fred Warner. And if you keep up with college football and saw what he did at BYU and what he's done with the 49ers, man, give me that Fred Warner. I know if I'm the Saints, I would have taken him in a heartbeat, because that guy can flat out play. Yeah. Big time.
Mike, saw a report earlier today from Nick Underhill that looks like Kiko Alonso's healthy, should be good to go, on track to be good to go after the torn ACL for training camp. I'm curious your thoughts. I was chatting about this in hour one, Mike. I think that linebacker spot opposite Demario Davis is going to be, for me, the most interesting camp battle for the New Orleans Saints. When you look at the options there, how do you think that plays out with a healthy Alonzo Anzalone, and then you put Zach Bond in the mix?
Well, if Anzalone is healthy, he's the other starter.
The guy. Okay.
Okay, come on. And you're in the nickel and dime sets, for the Saints, it's over 80%. So you rarely see three linebackers on the field. It'll be interesting to see how they get Zach involved, because having watched him a lot at Wisconsin, they used him a lot as a get up the field, get after the quarterback type guy. Not as much in reverse. So how they would incorporate that. Kiko has always been a really good football player. I say this about an injury. When you've had it before, like he has a couple times, I think it's easier to come back from, if that makes any sense, because you've been through that rehab. You understand what it takes to get your body back in shape. And I think always it's the first-time injury that you have that, you've kind of not been through that before, and You sort of question some things. I think with Kiko, he's been through this a couple times already.
Yeah.
So for him to come back is certainly good news. I think the key here is Alex Anzalone, because if he can stay healthy, and again, that's a big if.
Yeah.
You got yourself a really good football player here, really good. But man, that's a big but. If on the health part of things, and so listen, I'm thrilled that Kiko is back healthy. You hope that he can stay that way. I think the big question marks, and this is where it really hurts, not having the OTAs and training camp period early, is the work with Vaughn and the work with Caden Ellis, who was impressive last year, not only in training camp but in the time that he played on the field during the preseason, of getting him more involved. But there's a lot more question marks there than any other spot on this Saints football team, because of the fact with Kiko and also Anzalone's injuries. You know what you have in DeMario Davis. You know that part of it. What you don't know is, the long-term health of Anzalone and certainly Alonso, and also what you have in Zach Vaughn and Caden Ellis to build upon, one, a rookie, and the other one, with Caden Ellis, is a guy that really spent, the entire time kind of watching last year instead of playing.
Mike, I get asked a lot about Joe Bachie. I guess it's a name we should throw in the mix as well. I mean, you think that's a guy that could legitimately make this squad and play this year as a rookie?
Joe, man, listen, everybody counts him out no matter what. And had he not had the suspension for the performance enhancement, there's no way he doesn't get picked, okay? Now, he's smart. He's instinctive. He's not the biggest. He's not the fastest of the linebacking core in the middle, but he's got great instincts. He rarely takes a false step up the field. He has the ability to work around big men up front. He's a really sure open field tackler, and he'll help on special teams. Now, he's got 2 preseasons to prove it. 2 preseason games to sort of prove it.
Yeah, true.
That's going to be the other part of it. And even in talking to some of the Saints assistant coaches and other people in the league, their deal is, now that's a lot of pressure now that we haven't seen before, because now the body of work, as that it would say, the eye in the sky don't lie. Well, how many chances you get to see the eye in the sky?
Yeah.
That's going to be the issue with him. But Joe is the type of guy that I could see make this football team. But you know how he makes it? Special teams.
Makes sense. We've seen a lot of Saints linebackers be able to make the team and contribute that way. Craig Robertson's a good example of that. Mike, here's your obligatory Jadeveon Clowney question, because I get asked him all the time. I know you do as well. But we saw the report last week that apparently Clowney would be willing to take a 1-year deal to go to a contender. Saints and Dallas at the top of his list were the reports. What's your reaction when you hear that, Mike?
It tells me that he's got no market.
Well, I agree with that. You think he'll end up in New Orleans?
It tells me his market has dried up very, very quickly for himself. One, because of his price tag initially. I think that a lot of people were, man, I ain't paying that kind of money for him. He's been a good player, but he hasn't been an elite player. But he's been a good football player. I'm not paying that. I'm not paying $16, $17, $18 million for Jadeveon Clowney. Now, you had the Browns offer him 15. I do know the Titans were a team that really wanted him a lot. John Robinson has spent a lot of time, and they thought he would be a good piece defensively to add to the lineup. They had talks with him. It's been a while since they've spoken. The same thing with Pete Carroll. Pete has spoke, about Jadeveon, and he would like to have him back. But again, man, the price tag, I think, drove everybody off. And the best offer he had was Cleveland. And I think what he's done is what a lot of people who maybe think they have options would do with Cleveland. I'm going elsewhere. So, this really came out a few weeks back. And actually locally, Nader, Marfiq, I think is how his last name is spelled. But Nader was the one who actually broke this story locally. It wasn't Tony Pauline, believe me. Tony Pauline's good at repeating somebody else's stuff, but as far as breaking news, he ain't breaking a lot of it. But Nader had this weeks ago about the Saints having an interest. I think a lot of this is sometimes driven by the agent now, who sees, man, I'm caught in a bad place. We turned down the Browns, and now where do we turn next? Where do we turn with this in this spot? And I think he's maybe putting out, the agent is maybe putting out, well, I want to play for a contender, and I'm willing to pay for less. Okay, well, what is less? Is it $11 million? Is it $10 million? Sort of, where do you go with this financially? And I know the Saints won't overpay. I think they would have a price tag they would feel comfortable with on a one-year deal with Jadeveon Clowney. But, man, again, you see this. And they've done this a couple times with a couple different players. We saw it a few years back that, they kind of played footsie with Ndamukong Suh. The Titans did the exact same thing. They played around, and basically Suh was, man, I got a lot of interest out in California. I'm going to sign with the Rams. And at times he was awesome with the Rams. And then finally he was, man, I'm out of here. And the Bucs, he signs there, and I'll guarantee you he'll have another big payday somewhere else in this league. That's what happens when you have talented players. Him coming off the injury, Clowney, I think also is another sort of negative of not knowing exactly what you're getting physically for Clowney. Would he be a good fit? He'd be a good fit for any of the 32 teams.
Yeah.
One, I think he's underrated in his play against the run. I think that's where I didn't see that at South Carolina. He was never a great run defender. He was a get up the field, get after the quarterback type guy. And yet, man, he's really done a good job there. He's a good pass rusher. Man, you never have enough of him. But the fact that you have not heard him sort of connected, and he's sort of being connected dots here. Every week it's somewhere different. Okay, Cleveland, Tennessee, New Orleans, Dallas, Seattle. Now, give it a couple more weeks and he'll be attached somewhere else.
Do you think – no, go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
It is – I think it's going to come down to money, okay? What does he want? I'm going to do a little bit better deal on a one-year deal. What does he want? Now, none of us know that. Does he want $11 million a year? I don't know that the Saints do $11 million a year for Clowney. Now, if it's 9, or in the 10 range, you might think about that because you can do a little bit of maneuvering, salary cap-wise. You always can. To make a good player fit. I've always believed that. I never believed the fact that, we can't fit him under our cap. Man, you can make anything work if you need to. The big thing is how much was Clowney want? And my concern is a little bit of health at this stage with him.
Do you think that signing Clowney potentially could impact the Saints' opportunity to extend Kamara this offseason, or are the two not related?
It's not related.
Okay.
I'm still a believer in this. I do listen to Sean and how he talks about Alvin Kamara. And the fact that the second part is, have you heard a peep about negotiations between Kamara and the Saints?
No.
That tells me that things are running, in a direction that would take it to a long-term deal. But I think that one of the things that Kamara's people are looking at is they feel the first big domino to drop is going to be Derrick Henry in Tennessee. John Robinson has made it known that he wants to get a deal done before Henry gets to training camp. And so, if I'm Kamara's camp, I want to see that one because that's going to affect him and also is going to affect running back out in Minnesota too, okay? Both those guys are going to get affected by the deal that Derrick Henry gets put on the table. You're not going to cross the bridge with McCaffrey. That one's going to stay there for a little while.
Yeah.
But I think they'll chase the money that Derrick Henry gets. And I think for both of them, Dalvin Cook and Alvin, I think will chase that money similar to what Derrick Henry is going to get from the Titans.
Mike, let me circle back to where we started with Naquan Brown's commitment. And a lot of people have asked this question, so I'll pose it to you. Marcel Brooks just transferred, and it was kind of obvious that Marcel was a bit of a tweener in this defense, more of a 3-4 outside linebacker and maybe a man without a true position. Well, Naquan Brown kind of looks like that as well, although you kind of detailed how he could get bigger and maybe play a different role. Is there do you see any correlation there with the style that LSU is recruiting moving forward? And some have even asked the question, why make this shift if it's going to cost you players like Marcel Brooks, or if a Shelvin or an Ika are now out of position making that switch?
Well, with Marcel, I never thought he was a linebacker. And a 3-4 outside linebacker, come on, that guy is almost like another defensive end. I mean, that's not Marcel Brooks. Come on, he's Grant Delpit. If you want the comparison, that's who he compares to.
So
he's
why didn't they play him there, Mike?
Well, so who are you going to take out of the lineup, Stevens or Harris?
No, I'm with you.
Okay, so a lot of guys highly recruited like Marcel, and everybody's got a different personality in life. They don't want to wait. There is no wait. I want to play now. And I think we're trying to find a spot for him. If it would have been at the safety position, if it would have been kind of this hybrid type player that you can move around. Because watching him, I always thought when Grant Delpit played as a sophomore, did you really know where he was on every play? He played up front almost like a defensive end. Sometimes he played as an outside linebacker. Sometimes he was playing deep coverage. Sometimes he was in the slot. Now, the shoulder injury and the ankle injuries limited that. You didn't see that from Grant Delpit last year.
Right.
But that's what I envisioned. That's what Marcel would look like, that he would be that type of football player. And I did think he would see a lot of playing time. But, again, there's sometimes some impatience, especially with a guy that he was one of the top players in that recruiting class. Everybody thought he was going to be the star player. They were trying to find a spot for him last year, and he came up with a couple big plays. Remember the one against University of Florida on the sack and that sort of deal. But every time I saw him and I heard him, they were talking about outside linebacker and then the middle linebacker. What? No, he's Grant Delpit. That's who he looks like. But, man, Grant was a sharp guy and understood kind of his role on that defense. And I do remember Coach O saying, I gave him a lot of latitude, maybe more than any other player I've ever coached other than Troy Polamalu.
Oh, yeah. So do you
that was some big comments when you think about, what they let Polamalu do at USC and you look at what Delpit did as a sophomore. With Brooks, he was sort of a man without a country. Yeah. Oh, now where exactly I'm going to play? Because I heard more talk about him at linebacker than I heard talk about him at safety. But I felt that was going to be his position. He would have been the Grant Delpit type guy to play that safety position. But you had a guy in Harris who I think he's an alpha dog leader. He sort of takes charge when he's out on the field. He's a barker, and he can communicate. And you need that part of the game a lot. You just hope that he can come back from the knee injury. And Stevens, they've used him last year late. Didn't they put him almost in the same spots that we saw Delpit have?
Yes.
He was up on the line of scrimmage as a defensive end. They used him as a rusher. He was a linebacker close and helping run support. You saw him back in the coverage part of the game, and that's something he's going to have to get better at. Man, Marcel's an unbelievable athlete. I mean, just unbelievable. And I knew this part. As soon as the coronavirus started to spread and we got the shutdown, there are going to be some players that are going to be a little bit unhappy, maybe in the position that they're in. They feel as though they should be a starter, and they'll say, I want to be close to home. And, I feel more comfortable there. Can the NCAA turn that down? At this stage, Matt, I don't see how.
I agree.
I don't see how you can't give that waiver to that young man to do that. But it sort of popped in my head at that time that we're going to – and I do believe we may see more than Marcel across the country who maybe aren't happy about particularly where they're at today, want to leave and become closer to home and have that trump card to throw down. And I don't see how the NCAA can stop that. In essence, they've done it for other players with health conditions to a parent or to somebody close to them that they've given that waiver, and you're automatically put into that deal. So I wouldn't be surprised he ends up at TCU fairly quickly.
I would certainly agree with that. He's from Flower Mound, just north of Fort Worth. That would make a lot of sense if the opportunity to play exists right away.
But I've always felt, Matt, he's a safety. And I think in the back of his mind, he thinks that too, that I should be playing safety. That I really think that's the position when I first saw him come out of high school, my thing is, okay, once Grant leaves, he's the next guy up.
It's so strange, Mike, because even Ed was talking about him there at the mic. So, like, whose decision was that to try to kick him inside? I'm with you. But one quick follow-up. Do you think that how do you think this impacts LSU recruiting and the type of guy they might recruit moving forward? Meaning the switch to a 4-3, Mike, with Pelini and switching from 3-4 to 4-3.
I think you always look for guys that can come off the edge. I don't care if it's defensive end, outside linebackers. I think that becomes such an important position. And it doesn't matter what spot, because in essence, that 3-4 outside line, that other linebacker, he's rushing the quarterback all the time. So he's really the fourth defensive lineman. So it has a little bit of difference, I guess, recruiting-wise. Matt, I think, and we've talked about this in the past, the hard thing is, okay, find me the pass rushers, okay? Everybody, 4-3, 3-4. I'm more worried about the defense. Oh, my God. No, you know what I'm worried about? Find me a damn pass rusher. Find me one, because it's difficult today. And I told this to Ed a couple years ago. I said, you'll find the quarterback long before you find the next great pass rusher. Give me the next great pass rusher. Now, P.J. Ojulari might be that guy, but he found Joe Burrow, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he might have Miles Brennan next. And you're still waiting. It's unbelievable how this has changed so radically. And that's why a guy like Naquan Brown or like Savion Jones, why they so highly recruited, okay, you can't find them. I can find the big man in the middle, okay? And guys like Mason Smith, it's not to say you trip over those, but I can find a couple of Masons, but it's to find the next edge rusher. Where are they today? Okay, Chase Young, yeah, okay, I get it. You got one like that. Okay, Caleb was a top 20 pick. But then you start to say, where's the next one coming from? It's more and more because of the switch and the way the game is played in the pitch and catch game. Those big, tall, sort of lanky athletes are playing wide receiver and tight end. They're not playing defensive end and outside linebacker anymore. And I see it at the camps, when they tell them, go here in this position, go here, defensive ends, pass rushers, go over here. Man, listen, I could take them in my Jeep and bring them over there. I mean, ain't a lot of them. I can put them in my Jeep and take them over. There ain't a lot of those guys. That is becoming the hardest position in college football to get. The hardest. So that's why no matter what, when you see even Naquan Brown, who's 200 pounds or 205, you say, man, he potentially could be a pass rusher for us. So you don't pass that up, because you're not going to get that many opportunities to pick up that pass rusher. It's just part of the game that's changed. And I think, Matt, what you'll really see give this 5 years. and watch the impact of the NFL. Those quarterbacks, man, if you think they got time to throw the football now, they really going to have time.
Interesting. All right, Mike D., before we get to listener questions, I got to get your thoughts on Cam Newton going to New England.
It's interesting how I've heard a lot of different takes about, this is sort of, hey, Tom, I'm going to show you we're going to do this without you. You know what this tells me more than anything? It's the first time in Belichick's career he has walked away from a style quarterback. If you go back to his days in Cleveland, he had Bernie Kosar, Vinny Testaverde. Big, tall guy, sit in the pocket, throw the football. You look at when he started with New England, who was his starter? Drew Bledsoe.
Yeah.
Man, listen, Drew Bledsoe ain't running no football 400 meter on the relay team. Brady, when Brady goes down one year, Matt Castle, who was a career backup and then, at USC, and then, he got to start some with the Chiefs. He's a guy that's sit in the pocket type quarterback, throw the football. You think about Garoppolo. Come on, Garoppolo ain't a 100-meter dash guy by any stretch of the imagination. He's a sit in the pocket guy. This is the first time Bill is sort of broken. I think it intrigues him that Cam gave him trouble the two times he went up against him. He sees the success of Russell Wilson, of Patrick Mahomes, of Lamar Jackson, and says, you know what? I'm going to give this a whirl.
Interesting.
That goes to show you the brilliance of Belichick. And Rick Venturi has long told me this. He said, Mike, he's not married to a player, and he's not married to a system. He's married to what's best for his football team. And I think at this stage, he wants to see if it'll work with Cam. Now, listen, that's the hardest thing for a guy with success, to say, I'm going to change a little bit. I'm going to change what I do. Because you know what? If somebody tells you, Bill, maybe we ought to change, well, why should I? Do you want me to show you all them rings? You want me to break out the jewelry, the bling I got? Why should I change? But Bill is the type of guy of, okay, I'll give this a shot. And it's funny how Venturi and I spoke about this months ago, in that Mike, he said it wouldn't shock me that he brings in Cam, because he says, he's got that in his mind. He remembers those games that Newton gave him trouble. And he's maybe thinking, you know what, the league is changing, and I got to change too.
He's on Twitter at Mike Detillier. We always wrap with your questions. Let's get to it. Mike, got one on email from Charles, who, it's kind of a long email, Mike, but he's basically asking if you think that LSU could end up with 10 guys drafted in this year from this year's team.
Potentially.
Do you think?
I'll put it to you this
okay.
way. I've got 9.
Okay, you've got 9 right now. Who would be your not drafted maybes?
I don't have it right in front of me, but I can do it next week. I can definitely give it to you on who I have rated and who I've got right off. But it's 9.
Okay, I believe it.
And my thing is, and it's one of the defensive linemen. And again, a lot of times that's a position where a guy, as a senior, comes across big and he makes a move and gets selected.
Ask Mike, this is Jake Higginbotham. Ask Mike, could the next great pass rusher to LSU be Ali Gay? He's a prototypical D end, he writes.
I've told you this before. If I was going to build a defensive end, I want him to look like Ali Gay.
Yeah.
He's 6'5.5". He's 265 pounds. He's got arms like a big condor. So he's going to give me trouble if he throws them up in the air. Now, he's a speed pass rusher. So what I've got to do with Ali Gay is he's, again, working with Coach O and working with Bill Johnson and Christian Lacouture in his ability to move, counter move. Because if all you've got is a speed pass rusher, man, I catch you like a pop fly. I sit back on my haunches and I catch you just like a pop fly. But if you've got move and a counter move, then I'm in trouble. But he potentially could be that type player because physically he's got it. Now we've got to learn about, can he put the moves together to beat a lineman?
Ask Mike, does the staff trust Max Johnson to be the main backup for Brennan? He writes that the Orgeron did not trust true freshman Brennan in 2017.
Well, ain't he got to this year?
I don't think he's got a choice.
Man, I can answer that question real quick. Yeah, he trusts him because that's what you got right now. I'll always remember Archie Manning telling me this. And he's like, Max Johnson, he's like, is he going to stand firm at LSU with that commitment? Because he said, he's got ties to other places. His dad was a Florida State guy. I said, everything I hear, yeah. And he's like, he said, listen, pass this along to Coach O. He got him a budding star in his hands. Now, that's coming from Archie, who saw him a lot more than I did up to that point.
Yeah.
And so, that's saying a lot.
Seems to be the consensus on Max. Got about a minute, Mike. Let's see. Logan Ryan update?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing at all.
What about Antonio Brown? Bucks, Seahawks, Packers, or another team?
I would be shocked if he ended up in – there ain't enough balls to throw in Tampa to him.
Agreed.
Now, Seattle might be a different situation because he is working out with Russell Wilson. And the one thing with Pete, he's willing to take a chance on a very talented player who's maybe not Watusi, He don't dance the same dance as Pete, but Pete's handled guys like that before. And who wouldn't want his talent? Again, it's some of the other distractions he gives you. And also, too, we don't know what the NFL is going to put down on him as a possible suspension.
He's on Twitter at Mike Detillier, SaintsReport.com, MikeDetillier.com, Saints News Network over at SI.com, and with us every Thursday in hour 2. You the man, Mike. We appreciate you as always. Happy 4th.
Thank you, Matt. Happy 4th of July.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.